All right, so we're going to go and dive a little bit deeper into remote piloting command. We've talked about it before, the remote PIC. That was kind of defining, so you knew what it was. But I want to go over these 6 statements about the remote piloting command, just so that if there's some parts of them that are unfamiliar to you, that they make sense. First of all, I would think that, at least for myself, as I read number 1, I ask myself the question, why are we talking about a piloting command? It's just like me and my drone out in the middle of the field. Okay, that's kind of what the purpose of this video instruction is really about. UAS, we refer so many different ways we talk about it, right? We talk about drones, unmanned aircraft systems, unmanned aerial systems. There's all these different terms that really mean the same thing. We start with the remote drone. So we call it a drone, right? This is something that is working under our command. And it's a system, okay? So let's think of it as a system and we'll work up from there. Me and my drone are a system. That's probably the smallest element of the UAS team that you can have. As we start to increase from there, because a lot of our thought is, oh, I'm part 107, me and a drone in the field. That's true in most cases, but a lot of cases, you're going to be part of a team. So there's going to be some sort of unmanned machine. In this case, we're talking about a flying quadcopter. Could be, doesn't matter how many blades are on it. I'm getting all wrapped around semantics here. But we have underwater drones. We have land drones. A lot of folks have been calling those robots for a lot of years. They probably don't want to change that. But we have the pilot and we have the system. In this case, we're talking about aerial drones. They could be fixed wing. They could be roto wing. Doesn't have to be just the standard DJI 4-rotor machine that you're used to seeing. It could be a fixed wing aircraft. It could have 6 different spinning motors. It could have 8. It could have 6 with rotors on top, rotors on bottom. I mean, that configuration doesn't really matter. As we add to that, we add a team. And the team can do a lot of different things. So we talked about the visual observer. That's part of that team. Now, we add some other people in there. Let's say, for example, we are in a movie set. I'm flying the drone. I'm one member of the team. My drone, that's the equipment. There's the second part of that system. And I have a visual observer. We'll call that the third part of the system. Now let's get into the fourth part of the system. I may fly the drone while someone else controls the camera. Okay, my particular specialty is flying drones. My partner may have a unique set of skills as a photographer. And for safe operation of the drone, there's many of these movie sets who may have multiple pilots. One is running the aircraft and one is operating the camera. So as you see, we can keep adding different pieces. If we're in emergency services, we could have someone on a ground station receiving the images and stitching them together and creating a map or some type of visual for the emergency responders to use to choreograph whatever emergency they're working on, okay? So I wanted to bring all that mess in there so that we could talk about, why do we even need a remote pilot in command? It's just me. Okay, so the remote pilot in command must be designated before and during the flight. So before the flight mission, if it's just me and a drone, I don't need to talk about it, right? But if it's me and a group of other teammates, a part of this unmanned aerial system, then we determine who's the pilot in command, and that pilot in command needs to remain the pilot in command for the duration of the flight, or at least be able to have a plan for transfer of that position. The remote pilot in command is directly responsible for and is the final authority as the operation of the unmanned aircraft system. That's just the way it is. Whoever's in charge, who's flying the drone, they got to make the calls because they're the ones being held responsible. The remote pilot must ensure that all small and micro aircraft will pose no undue hazard to other people. It's our responsibility as a pilot to make sure that we're flying in a manner safe to the public. 4, the remote pilot must ensure that the operation complies with all application regulations. Our drone is registered. We have the right credentials. We're not intoxicated or impaired. Right? All the different regulations that are wrapped around our flight and our permission to fly, we need to make sure that's happening. All right, number 5, the remote pilot must have the ability to direct the UAS to ensure compliance with all regulation. Again, I may not be flying, but I could be next to the person who is flying. This comes back to responsibility and who directs safe flight and compliance flight. It's a remote pilot. And then finally, 2 remote pilots in command can transfer the controls as long as they can maintain line of sight and without loss of control. All right, I'm not going to go too deep into that, but if we're flying for a long period of time and we're wanting to switch for some reason, obviously it would be best for us to land the aircraft and switch to the next pilot. But if we want to, say, pause a mission, or for example, if we're flying an automated autonomous flight and the drone is flying by itself and all I'm doing is holding the controller and I'm not manipulating the controls and I'm just watching the drone for safe operation, and I want to hand that controller off to someone, and as long as we don't lose control and we don't lose line of sight, we can pass that off to them. Okay, so that's remote pilot in command.